Banjo Jed here, aka Kevin Wiley, your host, and this is part two. And if you've already watched the first video on set up the banjo, then you're already ready to move on to the next part. Make sure your banjo is playable, by all means, to save yourself a lot of grief and hardship. Make sure you check out that video. Let's move on. Impairments. You may have issues with fingers or hands, arthritis. Maybe you've damaged your fingers at some point and they never really came back properly. Or you may have a wicked hooked pinky, and that will make it difficult for you to play chords. And so keep those things in mind. But if you have a seemingly good set of fingers, there's no reason why you can't learn this if you pay your dues. Next thing, you can get yourself a banjo strap. Some of these banjos are heavy, especially the ones with the metal tone rings. And the banjo doesn't have to have a tone ring. They're installed there to help the banjo ring. But I properly set up, even an inexpensive banjo can sound quite wonderful even without it. It'll give a different tone, more woody or more hollow sound or whatever, and for that application, for the right song, sounds marvelous. So if it's too heavy and you have a tone ring, a heavy banjo, you can always purchase a lighter one, get that set up properly, and save your back. Pretty tough to play without a strap because they're round and they don't sit on your lap worth anything. Okay, next, finger picks. Now we're going to start off, we're not going to use finger picks for a beginner because finger picks will make it very difficult at first, and there's a learning curve with the finger picks, but I would like to discuss them at this point. We have our typical plastic thumb pick, and you can buy National, Grover, there's all kinds of picks. Go to the music store, try a bunch out, maybe even buy a couple. Come in small, medium, large for everyone's size kind of deal. And keep in mind that these do break, they're plastic, and it should be comfortable. If it's too tight, it'll block off the blood flow and your thumb will be cold. If it's too big, it'll slip off. There's a sweet spot there. You'll figure that out. Buy yourself a couple. And then for the finger picks, we have to use metal finger picks. We can't use plastic finger picks. If you have plastic ones, you can give those away to somebody. Guitar player or a kid or something, but you can purchase National thumb picks or finger picks. I'm sorry. You can buy National or Dunlop. There's a number of companies, Ernie Ball, that make different kinds of picks. But this is like 35 thousandths of an inch thick. They're really heavy duty. They're not flexible. They're really hard to manipulate. And so to get them where you want to, though, we get a pair of needle nose pliers. And we're going to fashion these and make a nice round shape to fit our finger. And you're going to find that one finger is a little bit bigger than the other. So when you put the picks on, after you get them all set up, you're like, oh, wrong finger. And they're quite a bit different. But the point of it is to get them nice and round using a pair of needle nose pliers to bend them. Get them shaped just like your finger so they fit on nice and tight without falling off. And then you're going to notice how much my finger pick is bent. These are bent right up there, and you can see that. Now you might start off with them straighter, like they're straight out this way a bit more. And I've seen banjo players be able to play. You can practice that method, and maybe that might not be too bad. There's been times when I've had to adjust them to get them straight. I change it because my playing hand isn't doing what I want it to do. You got to be willing to bend those a bit. Also realize that because they're metal, if you keep bending them too much, you'll break a set or two like I have over the years. So if you can purchase a couple sets, say 2 sets, you should be good for a long time, if not forever, as long as you want to play the banjo. So those are the kind of finger picks that I recommend. I don't recommend what they call pickies. instead of being the wider type of tip that you see here, okay, they're actually very narrow at the top, and just tiny little pieces of metal that are actually like about width of a toothpick almost, and they're called pickies, and they have a lighter touch. And if you're trying to play maybe a very light type of a setup, actually it might be okay. But for playing 3-finger Scruggs and you're going to play it like you mean it, you probably want more robust finger picks. And you'll notice here in this banjo, I have a towel or whatnot, and I've inserted it, like I have this one here, a towel behind the truss rod, and it's helping to mute the banjo so that I can play this at nighttime when people are sleeping or if it's bothering somebody in the house. So you might want to do that. You can also buy a mute, although it might get in the way of here. And you can also insert a little cloth, easy enough if you don't want to take your banjo apart. Insert some claws underneath here, and that might help mute it a bit. But you might find to really play it so I'm not annoying people, I may have to take the screws off the resonator if you have one, and remove it, and then get them behind there, put the towel in, and then put the resonator back on. Those are some options. Okay, let's talk about fretting the left hand do's and don'ts. You'll notice on one of the pages I have a chord sheet of chords that you're going to begin learning, and these are just a start. And in order to play chords properly, we have this wide space here. Okay, now when we say refer to a fret, see, this is for fret 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I refer to a fret, say I want you to put your finger on fret number 2, I don't mean put it on top of the fret. I mean put it right directly behind the fret. Now look at the space I have here. If I were to put it here, I have to push a little harder than if I were to put it here. Does not require as much effort to push the string down right behind the fret. And now there are times when it's really difficult. If I'm playing a full chord, I might have to really stretch my fingers to get there. And maybe it's a crowded chord, like an A minor chord, and I have to get all those fingers in there. And so I can't always put my finger behind the fret. But whenever possible, we want to place our finger just behind the fret. So that's the fretting for the left hand. The other thing is, if you'll notice carefully, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but my fingers are not like this. Okay, they're not leaning over. They're actually the last little knuckle of each, or digit of each finger. Last little knuckle, I guess you'd call it, is straight up and down as much as possible. Okay, it's not like this, but it's like this. And that's very important to try to maintain that. So you're going to practice your chords. We're going to start off with some very basic chords. This is our G chord because it's G tuning. And when you tune your banjo accordingly, it's a high G, D, G again, an octave lower than the first one, or the fifth one, and a B, and a D. And the strings, of course, go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The bottom string is number 1, and you work your way up to 5. And let's see. Once you've mastered your G chord, which shouldn't take you too long, you move on to the C chord. And you'll notice that the C chord, I use my first finger on the 2nd fret, right behind the fret. Okay, it's going to take a while for some of you folks to do that. My 3rd finger, I'm going to place it on string 1 on the 2nd fret, right behind the fret. You can see that. And then finger number 2, I'm going to have to move my hand a little bit. See, I may have to move my wrist a little bit to get where I want to go. I can't just always play like this. I may have to actually move my wrist a bit to get there. And I place 1, 2, and 3 third fingers. And do a little strum. You can put your thumb pick on and try that. It should sound nice and clean. if you hear like a thud, 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 then obviously it could be one of your fingers just touching the next string that it's not supposed to. So what you can do is, okay, move it around, make sure it's where you want it to be without touching the next string. And that last little part of your finger, the last little knuckle there, is as straight up and down as you can get in order to produce a nice clean sound. Also, whenever you're doing chords, your fingers need to act like a team. Okay, finger 1, 2, 3, 4. We all want to go together. So if I'm heading from the G chord to the C chord, everybody on together. Everybody off together. Everybody on together. Everybody off. We're a team. Everybody on. At first, a beginner will go, okay, where does that go? Yeah, okay, right there. And okay, the next finger, right there. Okay, well, that's okay for learning. But our goal is you're going to memorize that little picture there of the chord on the chord sheet of that chord, of the C chord and the other ones. And you say, okay, there's the C chord. And I'm going to be able to go off to on. And if you've never touched the banjo before, don't be surprised that that is actually quite difficult to do. We've all had to learn this process. Let's go to the next chord. We're looking at a D7 chord. This one, again, my first finger on the second string and on the first fret, just like the C chord. You'll notice it's the same spot. And all I need now is my second finger, and I need my second finger on string number 3 on the fret number 2. And I get them right behind the frets, and I can do a strum. And just try practicing going from the G chord, open, to the D7 chord. And same with the C. And once you've done that, it might take you a week or 2 or 3. Don't be surprised if it takes you longer than you think. You can move on to some other chords. Here's the E minor chord you'll notice on that same chord sheet. Fairly simple. And of course, then now the idea is to go back and forth from one chord to another. And that's how we will accomplish songs, by doing that very same thing. The A minor chord has a couple of options. You can just use strings 1, 2, and 3, and don't even play the 4th string. If you notice at the top of that little chord chart for the A minor, AM, you'll see a little 0 or a little O. That means you can play it open or not play it open. In fact, if I play A minor open, it doesn't sound very good. There's supposed to be actually an X. I marked that wrong. There's supposed to be an X indicating you do not play string number 4 if you're going to play it open. Notice in the G chord, the O above all of the strings, that means open. Notice the C chord, string number 3, is got an O up there on the top. That means open. And D7th, I got string 1 and string 4 and so on. So that means I can play it open. A minor, that's a mistake. If you want, you can, if you ever print these off, I don't know, whatever, make your own chord sheet. There should be an X right there. We don't normally play that open, but we can use a couple of different things. I can just use 3 fingers if my second finger is capable of what we call a bar, which means this finger is going to touch both strings 3 and 4. It's going to fret. We call it fretting. Fret 2 and 4. And the other strings, first finger on first fret, string number 1, and then I got string number 2. I'm sorry, string number 2, fret number 1, and then string number 1. I've got fret number 2, but I'm using my 3rd finger, and my 2nd finger can do the strings 3 and 4 there, just like the chord sheet shows you. Now, lots of times I don't even need to play that 4th string. And but we have options, and I'm going to discuss that with you as we move along. The other chord that everyone has trouble with, and it's the F chord. I need all 4 fingers. Okay, it looks like a D7. So you've already mastered the D7 chord. All we do is add fingers 3 and 4 on fret 3. You'll notice that by the chord chart. And it's going to take you a bit of work. Don't be surprised if it's going to buzz and sound muddy and all that. Each of the fingers have to be in the right spot, and you're going to work at that. Okay, that basically talks about chords. There are more advanced chords, and we will be able to work on that as well. Now, with a banjo, if I'm just strumming my banjo, I need to be able to play some of the full chords, and I'm using full chords. But typically when we're playing the banjo bluegrass 3-finger style, we will end up only playing a partial chord. I only need 1 or 2 fingers to get to do what I'm aiming for, because that's where the melody and everything is. So I don't need all of my 4 fingers on there. And so you might say, well, how do I know what chord that we're playing at what point? Well, when you look at a tab sheet, often you'll see written the name of the chord above that measure. For instance, the song we're going to look at today, Buy Them Cabbage Down, that you'll see on the picture, you'll see there's a G on the first measure, and then followed by C, and back to G, and then D7th. These are chords we've already learned. And so if you look at the tablature, you'll notice that all we need is a partial chord in this whole song. And most bluegrass songs are just set up and played just that way on the banjo, on the 5-string banjo. Okay, now right hand fingers. If I'm going to take my pick off, so that we're just going to work with our fingers for a second, and you can do this exercise with me as well. My thumb of my right hand will pick string number 5, 4, 3, and 2. It usually wouldn't pick number 1. Not saying that it can't. Most times, under any circumstances, would you ever see that. The thumb picks the strings 5, 4, 3, and 2. My index finger, it picks string 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes. But mostly 2, 3, 4. So 2, 3, 4 is mostly what my index finger picks. My middle finger normally only picks string number 1. And for now, that's what we're going to do. It can pick other strings, but typically, no, it only typically stays, the middle finger typically stays on string number 1. And you might see some exceptions in advance notation for an advanced song. That's possible. Okay, let's talk about hand position. Now, I rest my pinky on the head. You'll notice a dirt spot right there, right in front of my bridge. And you can rest your ring finger and your pinky, if you so choose. You're going to have to figure this one out yourself. I'm giving you and telling you the options, and what that I've discovered and what I've heard other people say is they often just rest their pinky right there. If you rest both of your fingers right there, you might feel you have more control. You can play faster or more evenly. Again, you have to try that out. Some people will just use their middle finger there to secure. You have to secure your hand to the banjo somehow, because you're picking away. And your hand's going to dance all over the place. So you have to anchor it by just resting 1 or 2 or both or whatever fingers, your ring or your pinky, on the head of the banjo right in front of the bridge. And as you practice rolls and songs, you'll discover that one way feels more comfortable or more freer than the other. I think that the pinky frees up the ring finger, and I let the ring finger just flail around, do whatever it wants. But I find if I anchor on my middle finger, it restricts my thumb, index, middle a little bit, and that's just my experience. Again, you will try that for yourself. If you haven't yet, you should go on banjohangout.org and join up. And my username is Jethro Aberdeen. Reason being, Jed was already taken a whole bunch of times. And so I can watch for you, or you can tell me you signed up and we'll befriend each other. And then you can have access to lots of tabs that you can download free that I will produce for you right there on the site. But speaking of tabs, there are a couple thousand, I think, of free tabs at various levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced, whatnot, and variations of them, of the same songs, in the one location. I think it's called the media section. Anyway, lots of good material. Very interesting site to check out. All things banjo. Highly recommend it. There are other ones too that are just as, maybe almost as good. I think Banjo Hangout's the best, but that's just me. What else? Okay, you notice that the one sheet has tab rolls banjo, and this was produced on the Table Edit program. And I'm going to recommend you go to the tableedit.com site, and you'll find a little file called TEF View. TEF View. And TEF View is a free program that you can access and download thousands of free tabs on the web, or lessons or material that will help you, not just in banjo, but in any instrument pretty much. I have the full-blown version that gives me access to writing chords and notes and arrangements and whatever. But the free one is just basically a player. But what'll let you do is, if you're practicing something, you can slow it down in the speed bar there, and you can play it at a slower speed. And as you progress, you can speed it up and to increase your technique and your ability. So that is highly recommended. It's almost as good as having a teacher sitting beside you once you know what to do. Okay, so right hand, we have rolls or patterns are referred to, and we're going to start with a forward roll. And the forward roll basically is going to go thumb, then index, then middle. And you notice in measure number 1, I have a grouping of each section is a 3. There's a little 3 on top of those notes. That means 3 in the time of 2. And all that means is we're going to play it nice and evenly. And we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 as we do it. And we're going to pick 5, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1. So when you look at this measure number 1, you notice the first note that you see, the little O on the bottom there, that's the 5th string. So you count with it, looking at the tablature, moving from left to right, like we do reading words in a book. And string number 1's at the top, string number 2, 3, 4, 5, down to number 5 accordingly. So string number 1 is the top string that you see on this staff. Now it's not a grand staff, it's a tab, guitar tab or banjo tab in this case, written so that you can play it where the position is, not where the actual 12-tone scale is. Tablature has been around actually before the grand staff. If you check the history of it, it was created for lute even before the guitar was invented. So it's a very old form. It's not new. It has been perfected, and it behooves you to learn how to play it. So we're going to play 5, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1, thumb, index, middle. We're playing strings 5, 2, and 1 over and over, nice and evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might find that's too fast for you. Slow it right down. Go 5, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1. Rest your pinky on the head and away you go. 5, 2, 1, and so on. And again, you might hear me say this a lot. Playing it evenly is more important than playing it fast. If you pay your dues, you go slow, and you work at that slow and evenly. Again, you're getting the muscle memory of your fingers to demand them to do what it is you want them to do. And they have to be able to play nice and evenly under control. And you're going to notice that at first your fingers might be all over the place. Like my thumb is way over here. Like 1, 2, 3. And I might do that at first. But you realize that we're going to minimize the amount of effort and the distance our fingers are traveling. So we're going to fingers going to be close to the strings, and the movement is not really all that much. I hope that was clear enough on the video. So you're going to practice that and minimize the amount of effort and space that you have to move to get those rolls done. And you're going to master 5-2-1 before you do anything else. And you're going to keep doing it. And then you can move on, if you wish, to 5-3-1, which is the middle string here. Same thing. And 5-4-1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And work at that until it's nice and smooth. Don't be surprised if that is really difficult. After all, you've never been asked to do this before, and it takes a while to get the muscle memory to get your fingers to behave. So you keep working at that. And then we can move on to the next stage, and I'll touch on those just briefly. There are a number of rolls. Some are more advanced, of course, and later on we'll play a more advanced forward roll, but to get ourselves going, just play that 5-2-1 or 5-3-1, 5-4-1. Now we have the next line, which is it's got an inside-outside pattern, they call it. I'm going to pick strings 3, then 2, then 5, and 1. And I'm just going to take that one measure. That happens to be, it says measure number 6, I think, on the page. Yeah, measure number 6 begins our inside-outside pattern. Here's where the banjo starts to sound interesting. We're going to pick inside, then outside. Inside, outside. So 3, 2, 5, 1, 3, 2, 5, 1, 3, 2, 5, 1. And then we're going to do some, we're going to vary that up a little bit. We're going to go 4, 2, 5, 1. So same idea, inside, outside pattern, but some variation. So 4, 2, 5, 1, 4, 2, 5, 1. 5, 1, 4, 2, 5, 1. And you're going to work at that until you've got these two patterns down. And if you notice that it'll be, let me see, 6, 7. It'll be measure number 8. It's the third one on the second row there. It's a variation of the two. It goes 4, 3, 5, 1. 4, 3, 5, 1. 4, 3, 5, 1. 4, 3, 5, 1. And that's more of an advanced roll. And then, of course, what's lovely is we will alternate some of these patterns. And this is what gives the banjo its unique sound, is that we're not playing the same pattern over and over and over. We're sometimes playing the forward roll, sometimes the inside-outside roll, and sometimes what we call the up and down pattern, which is what we'll work at next. So let's have a look then at the up and down pattern. And it's at the end of the second line, and it goes 3, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. And this one will be very difficult at first, even just to play it through. Okay, and you'll notice that on the next line, it's the same pattern, measure 11. But then we do an alternating thumb, so it goes, instead of going 3, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, it's going to go 4, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 4, 1. So here's the first one with the up and down pattern that we learned, the 3, 2. 3, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then we have the 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 5, 1, 2, 4. So we're just changing, instead of playing the third string, we're going to start with the fourth string and go 4. So you're going to break up each measure, practice one measure at a time, until you get that measure down nice and clean. And you're happy with it, then move on to the next one. And there's some lovely alternating patterns that we will discuss where we just alternate some of these. Now, the very one on the bottom is an advanced roll, and it's just a backward roll, and it just goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's more of an exercise. The odd time, you will be called upon to play those series of notes like that, and you'll say, wow, that is so hard. And just by itself. And that's the reason why I've isolated it here on the bottom. And then we can have reverse rolls, and we'll discuss those. But those are good for starting out. If you can master that, you've done very well. Okay, let's see. We talked about speed will come when you play it enough. You must pay your dues. And then also give yourself a break. If you've never done this before, if you haven't played a guitar before, or you're picking the banjo up for the first time, don't be surprised that everything just seems like impossible. But it's not. Just keep at it. Give yourself a break. All right. First song. If you get this far, and you're still with me, Boil Them Cabbage Down is often the first song that we all learn. I'm going to play that for you now. Now, there's a couple things we can talk about. One is the thumb of my right hand. The thumb can pick the note a little bit more aggressively without even trying at it. And often we use the thumb to pronounce the melody. Because when we're playing the banjo, we want the melody to come out so that other people can hear what it is we're playing and understand. We don't want them to say, wow, every song sounds exactly the same. I can't figure out what you're playing. The aim you'll discover is, I got to play more cleanly, and I have to pronounce the melody. Think of the banjo three-finger scrug style as I'm picking a melody, often with my thumb, not always, but often with I'm picking a melody, and then with my other fingers, I'm accompanying myself, playing all these rolls and patterns. And that's basically the approach of the three-finger scrug style. So I may begin this forward roll on measure 1, you'll notice, and Boil Them Cabbage Down, and I can start off with the thumb. Now, we did the forward roll using the second finger. That's fine too. I suggest you try it both ways and listen carefully. So I'm going to start off with the way it's written and with the finger, just second finger, and play the song. Now let's try it with the thumb. Prefer the thumb because it's a little bit easier for me, and lead off with the thumb is kind of what we end up doing. So there's Boil Them Cabbage Down. We can play it a lot slower to start with, by all means, and this is just to get you started. If you don't get that far with the song and you're having trouble, then you need to back up to the other part of this lesson and make sure you've got your pinky mounted properly, you got your rolls down nice and even and smooth before you even attempt playing the song. Okay, let's talk about personal goals and how to track your progress. If it's scrugs, if it's folk, old time, whatnot, all those styles can be developed on the banjo. I don't play the frailing style banjo. There's lots of folks who can show you how to do that. But you figure out your personal goal, what you want to accomplish, and then figure out how to get there, and I can help you with that, I'm sure. The other thing is how to track your progress. Of course, you could take your phone these days and do what I'm doing right now. Just record yourself playing and then save it, and later on see what it's like. Or you can get yourself an MP3 player of various sorts. Even the computer has MP3 recorders on it there, if that's all you have access to. Most of us these days have access to something digital, maybe even a tape recorder if you still happen to have one. And then You could always date it, and 6 months from now, you could say, I don't know if I'm really getting anywhere. Well, play that track that's dated 6 months earlier, and then you realize, hey, well, okay, we're getting there. But I have to be patient, and you have to do your due diligence. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed part B of the first lesson for beginners. This is basically for beginners. Next time, we'll go into intermediate and discuss the left hand techniques, hammer-ons, slides, and various things, and work on a more difficult song and demonstrate that. And then the session number 3 plan is to go up the neck and solos and technique and chord structure so that we can work our way around the neck. So hopefully that's where we're aiming. Hope you enjoyed today's session, and thank you for listening.